So, hello and welcome everyone on this a bit rainy Thursday in Montreal. My name is Ina Popova. I'm Director of Professional and Corporate Education at the School of Continuing Studies. Welcome to our talk today. Today we will be talking about hope. And as Martin Luther, I believe, said once, everything that is done in this world is done by hope. And our guest today is a psychologist, educator, certified coach, absolutely intrepid woman, and a TEDx speaker, Dr. Zina Suissa. Zina, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Ina. Thank you for the kind words. Hello, everyone. So glad you're here and joining me. I know the weather's not great today, but we're going to overlook the weather. Stay on this journey with me, and I hope I'll inspire you in some way, because I chose a title, Leaders Inspiring Hope in a Time of Crisis. It has taken me a lot of time, and I spent many hours researching and wanting to give the very best. I was an educator at McGill for 25 years. In management at all levels. I taught at Dawson College in psychology. And like Ina said, I'm an executive coach, but I first started off as a psychologist, and psychology plays a big role at this time because there's so many things that we need help with. And I've been asked to help many times, and I'm very gratified and hopeful that people will be better. I think we should give up. I believe we have to have hope. Only today, I heard that there's a new drug on the market, remdesivir, which is for very sick people, but there's hope that there will be more drugs on the market. I know Oxford's come up with one, Israel has come up with one, so we have hope. So stay with me. I'd like you to relax, close everything, all your social media, Facebook, etc. We have plenty of time. It'll be a half an hour, maybe a little bit longer, and I hope you take away something from it. Is my picture. It's not me, but I'm wearing the same blouse if you notice. That's fine. I'm having technical problems. Stay with me. We'll try to get it to the next slide. There we go. Okay. If you notice, there's a rose in the corner. I'm going to move this so you'll be able to see it. There's a rose in the corner, and it keeps cropping up all the time. And I couldn't understand, so being very curious, I had to look it up. And what I found, roses grow, flowers grow everywhere. And in spite of everything going on, the earth dry, it is raining sometimes, these roses and many other flowers are coming right through the cement, which to me is absolutely amazing. So we call it rose against all odds. And I'm going to start off with some questions. You don't need to write them down. You will have this in the recording. You will get the recording afterwards. So I would like you to ask yourself, do you believe everyone is created equal? Are you aware of the conscious and unconscious biases that you had or have towards other? For example, conformity bias. I was on a committee for interviewing and hiring. Often we would go yay and nay, and sometimes people would be they had their own thoughts about hiring this particular person, but often we sway towards the majority because of peer pressure. That's called conformity bias. There are many. There's probably 20, 25 biases, and we need to make ourselves aware of that. So I'm giving just one example. Are you honest with others about your shortcomings or your misperceptions? Are you relearning from others? And now there's a special time because we can unlearn and learn new things. Are your behaviors and actions towards others aligned with your belief in equality? That's like cognitive dissonance. Your attitudes and your behaviors have to be aligned, or there's going to be a problem in the middle. Do you hold yourself and others accountable to a culture of inclusion? And you're going to see that inclusion is going to be throughout my presentation. So do you believe everyone is created equal is in your belief system. And these are the way we think. For example, if you're a parent, your belief is, I want to bring up very strong children. And the value system will be based on your beliefs. Are you aware of the conscious and unconscious biases? Extremely important, especially I think in leaders, is to be aware of themselves, their strengths, their weaknesses, their biases. Are you honest with others about your shortcomings, or misperceptions? And that's a sense of boldness. Boldness, the willingness to say the truth. Are you open to unlearning and relearning from others? And that will crop up a lot too. Curiosity. Are your behaviors and actions where that is aligned with your belief in equality? That's an action that you take. Do you hold yourself and others accountable to a culture of inclusion? And that's commitment. And I believe, and my TEDx was about courage, convictions, and commitment. We have to have all those three at this time. Sorry, doesn't seem to be moving. Sorry, I'll do my best. There we go. And Ina mentioned before, Martin Luther King, we must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. And basically that's what we're going to be talking about today. And there you have hope right there. Our reality right now is we're in the midst of a crisis. We don't even know where we're going with this crisis. Is it going to be worse? I know we talk about it, I try not to talk about too much, but this really is about a crisis right now. And the only thing we can change is our mindset. Hope is not an emotion. Hope is a mindset. It's a way of thinking. And we can develop a hope mindset. And I'll show you later how. Number one, a leader who has a hope mindset shows compassion, and they know how to build trust. They build trust within themselves to trust others, and they build trust so they want others to trust them. They're good communicators. They're visible, they have presence, they're available for people, they're transparent. They explain how the organization is going to be within this time of crisis. They're not hiding anything. They stay in the present, because if we go too much in the future, we're going to get stuck in that future. So focus on the present and try to stay positive. We focus, a good leader, a positive, hopeful leader will protect everyone's well-being, themselves and others as well. They have to respect people for their individuality. So now is not a time to argue with regards to diversity. People are very different, and we have to accept that they are different. So individuality is going to play a big role in our future normal. They create a sense of belongingness. And here we're going to go back almost to Maslow's hierarchy. We have to start from the bottom. And if you notice, everybody's running to the grocery stores or ordering food. We start with the basics, and then we start working up. And they know how to develop a shared vision, or they try to develop a shared vision. And this brings me to inclusive leaders. For me, I chose inclusive leadership. I've gone through many. I taught organizational behavior at McGill. I taught managing organizational teams at McGill. And I have a lot of information about leadership, and I know many leaders. One of the areas that I think that touches the most right now would be an inclusive leaders, because they're accessible, they invite input, they acknowledge fallibility, and I'll give you an example in a minute. They acknowledge themselves as making mistakes, not knowing everything. And their mindset, if people feel they're accepted and supported, they feel that people will thrive. Sorry. It worked the first time. Okay. In real time. Jacinda, the Right Honorable Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, who really has been so successful in this time of chaos and crisis. And these are some words that she used. I want to prepare everyone. And these are I'm taking from YouTubes that I listened to. I did write to Jacinda, and there was a response, and they said that she's so caught up with her day to day. I honestly thought that she would answer, but I didn't really expect that. Don't be disheartened. check on others, check on your neighbors. Your job is to hunker down for the next 4 months. And look what happens. She stopped tourism. She decided that people would be staying at home. She said, I don't mind people seeing my frailties. She's an anxious person. She has fears about what might be. You know, we tend to catastrophize, especially at a time like this. And she said, I'm anxious because I hate letting people down. I know these are everyone's emotions. It's a human emotion. Fear is really the first emotion. And from fear, we have anxiety. And she doesn't want to let people down. And she's learned to bypass that fear. Okay, April 27th, this past Monday, this was the news. New Zealand on verge of brilliant victory after 5 weeks of restrictions. Ardern's handling of the crisis she has been seen as the most effective leader on the planet. So I could not resist in looking into just a binder full. And one way they looked at it is, and I'm going to go through each one. They looked at, and if you're familiar with the big 5 personality traits in relation to this prime minister, she's very open to experiences. So even when she was pregnant, she went out there and did what she needed to do as a prime minister. She needed to develop a culture. She needed to have policies in place. She started working very quickly. She's very conscientious, and I've given you really some examples about that. So she carried out her duties in spite of. She tends to be high in extroversion. In spite of the anxiety, she said that what helps her is when she talks to people and she sees that they are along on her with her mindset, and that seems to lower the expectations of her and then lowers her anxiety. She's a very agreeable, altruistic person. She gives back. When they had the Christchurch shootings in a mosque, 51 people died. She didn't think twice. She went into the mosque, she put on a scarf, and she respects everyone. And she said, these people are here because they are part of our homeland, and they are us. They are everyone here in New Zealand. So she's very altruistic. She gives back. She's also considering she has anxiety, she has emotional stability, because in spite of, and I give you an example, she showed with her dialogue that she never she was having difficulties with Australia when she first became prime minister at the age of 37, youngest prime minister. And she had difficulties, and in spite of that, she never showed any negative feelings. That shows that she has the big 5 personality traits, and she has been analyzed with regards to that. She's open to experience, she's conscientious, she tends to be an extrovert, and she's agreeable, she's very altruistic, she gives back, and she, in spite of tensions and struggle around her, she has stability. She's stable, she self-regulates her emotions. Maybe that's another way to say it. Oh my goodness, this is going to be a problem. I don't know if it's my computer or it's this. There. Okay, so I'm going to start here. I talked about inclusive leadership. I'm bringing it back to hope. And before hope comes reality. The reality is that many of us struggle with fear. We feel very vulnerable. We worry. We're afraid. We worry. And we have, instead of what we have, homeostasis, we have a sense of disequilibrium because of this crisis. So what do we need to do? We need to make a shift to a hope mindset. And I picked 4 particular areas, and I'll show you why in a few minutes. We have to make a shift to a hope mindset through trust, compassion, resilience, and curiosity. I put empathy within compassion. So these are the 4 areas I chose. For leaders to have that hope mindset, they need to work on each of these areas. Okay, so how can leaders maximize, first of all, we're starting with trust, and minimize stress during COVID-19? Gallup research did research with 10,000 employees, and over and over and over again, what came up? Trust. We need a leader that we can trust. So also looking at stress, because the research was about trust and stress. In managing stress, leaders need to be calm, and they need to be deliberate and calculated. They need to think before they talk. They need to take stock of their stress, their own stress. Because if you were stressful, it is contagious. Other people feel stressed as well. They need to reset and refocus. They need to share information with empathy and optimism by recognizing there is great uncertainty, as we all know, because when you drive down a main street where there are stores, there have been so many most business closures and reduction of hours. And people are anxious because of that, because they don't have gainful employment. They may be getting some money from the government, but it doesn't mean that they feel that they're going forward, they're going to have jobs. And with hope, with companies coming into alliance, with working with each other, I believe we will come back. They need to recognize that people have anxiety, but if we have hope, it diminishes or reduces that anxiety. So hope is a proponent of really anxiety. It works kind of hand in hand. Leaders should make it clear we have a path, and use the we as leaders. I don't know who's out there, but I said hi to a lot of people, but hi everyone again. Use that path to future focus. In other words, use the we. I noticed Prime Minister Trudeau does it, or Jacinda Ardern. Many great leaders are doing, because we're all in this together. So leaders need to make this clear that we have a path. We are going forward. We're going to make plans. Use credibility to build trust. Credibility is a combination of expertise and dependability. You want to look to people who are experts. I will mention it, but my mentor at this point is Dr. Fauci, because I listen to everything he says, and I think he's amazing because he explains, but he is an expert in infectious diseases, like in microbiology, etc. So credibility is a combination of expertise and dependability. You have to be able to depend on him as an expert. Most importantly is be honest and transparent. I believe I live my life that way, being honest and open and transparent. And if you have to deliver disappointing news in a do it in a straightforward way, because we can't run away from this. We're living this. Provide regular communication. Communication stops if you agree with me. Communication stops and people imagine the worst. And that's why we're so honed in on the news. We want to hear what's going on. We want to know that things are getting better. We want we want the plateau. We're looking for information. So therefore we need that information. Also need to communicate with people, the nonstop. And I've become a real Zoomer with my family, my grandchildren. Provide forum for feedback. People have questions, and be open. As a leader, ordinarily the decisions are coming from the top of the hierarchy, but now we have to kind of reverse the order. We have to listen to others too. They may have some suggestions. They certainly have questions, and they gain trust. The leader will gain trust, as we all know, when they listen. So be open to suggestions. We don't have the answers. We're like starting over again. Be a good role model. And when I think of that, don't expect from others what you are not willing to do. It's being a good role model is not only the leader, but the parent is the leader as well. So we'd have to look, the Prime Minister is a leader, a good role model. So we're looking to them of what we can do, how we can be, but we have to be able to expect from them what we're willing to help do well. Second, compassion. We need to craft leadership as a narrative to share optimism and hope. And I'm taking this from, you'll notice throughout the presentation, I'm going to mention some names because I've been privileged to interview many authors. I did this in light of becoming a coach, and I thought, why not learn from the very best? And they've been amazing, and you'll see them all posted. I'll show you where. I interviewed Dr. Jane Dutton with regards to compassion. She's at the University of Michigan, and she's an expert. That's her expertise, is compassion. And she says compassion is the hidden heart of strategic success and the heart of leadership. Leaders need to show compassion, just as we're showing compassion now for health and care services, no matter at what capacity. If somebody's cleaning, if a nurse, a doctor, a paramedic, whichever capacity they're in, they need to show compassion for others. We could be walking in their shoes. We're very fortunate to stay home, and we call them heroes, but in many ways they are victims right now because many of them have gotten sick. So we need to show compassion for them and their families, because they've been taken away from their families. She claims that there are four aspects of compassion. The first one, you need to notice. Notice is a portal to awaken compassion. When people suffer, suffering is related really to a question about meaning and existence. And I bet many of you have thought, why is this happening? Why at this time? Like everything seems to be going according to what we thought was a plan. Why this time? What is the meaning of this? Is this about existence? Is this about, but what I will remind you, and which you do know, we have been here before. We've been through many epidemics. We've been through many loss. So going back to noticing, which is a portal to awakening compassion, we need to ask as leaders humble, gentle, kind questions. And it's a form of noticing people, and that shows them empathy and concern. We have to choose. I'm an executive coach, so therefore I've learned coaching is basically asking questions. I've learned to ask questions which derive information from people, but I've tried to show it with empathy and concern. The second aspect of compassion is to interpret. The key to responding with compassion is interpreting what is going on. We have to interpret suffering as worthy of compassion. Only then do we include others in the circle of concern. So far, two aspects. We need to notice, we need to interpret, and respond to compassion. Aspect is feeling. And that's the bridge to an action, because first we feel and then we notice, but now we know, then we feel, but now feeling is a bridge to what we can do. We either, if we close down compassion, we won't have very many conclusions. And we are often swayed with our stereotypes and our stigmas and our archetypes, etc. So we need to be open to others. We need to feel for others. We need to shift our own interpretations. We need to feel that others, everyone is deserving of compassion, starting from little kids to older people to everyone. And we can see that older people are addressed to far more than they ever were before. But everybody in the workplace needs to have that sense of compassion. And often if we look back, maybe we didn't do enough of that. So no matter a position in an organization, no matter their role, no matter their lifestyle, no matter their economic status, they're all deserving of compassion. And I think that's one thing that has to be changed with people. That's my opinion. The fourth aspect is action. Compassion is expressed in action. Leaders do not receive training on how to be compassionate. And I gave the example, it's like an improvisational actor. They make it up as they go along. And we build off of interpretation, like I said before, of suffering. And then you figure out what would help this person, because you have to be in alliance with this person. You have to be empathic. But empathy, like I said, will go with compassion. So managing compassion is a learned response. We have to learn to do this. And how is that done? Like everything else, we have to practice. For example, when there are layoffs and downsizing, that creates pain, anxiety, depression, trauma. We have to learn how to deal with that and express. You don't have to be an executive coach or a psychologist. You can learn this by practicing, by trying and testing out and asking a question, coming back to another question. This comes from the work of Monica Werlein and Jay Gatton. The book is called Awakening Compassion at Work, A Quiet Power That Elevates People and Organizations. And only if you choose, you can see my interview with Dr. Jane Dutton. She's at the University of Michigan, and you can see it in Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn under Resonance Executive and Team Coaching. I invite you to listen to. She's an amazing woman who talks about, she has always the analogy back to gardening. She's an avid gardener. So she takes compassion and brings it back to gardening, which is really amazing. And she talks about that in our interview. Okay, one more time. We've gone through two variables. Again, ask yourself, please, how will your organization ensure the well-being of the people? Do you have a well-coordinated communication system to ensure clear, transparent communication? Does your organization have a crisis management team? whatever it is, if you have access to an EAP program, if you need social workers, medical, whatever it is, medical resources, whatever you need, do you have, and you should have, a crisis management team? Do you have the trust of your administration, your staff, your employees, that you will demonstrate an ability to address unanticipated situations like now? Maybe now is the time to start thinking, because now you do have the time to think of how do we put something like that into place? And a good question is, do you lead from the heart and the head? In other words, you go to your cognitions, your reasoning, your logic, or do you deal with your emotions? My suggestion, both. At this time, we need both. We need people who are very rational and logical, but we also have to have that emotions, the other side. The questions were posed for resilience, the ability to bounce back from adversity, which is not a fixed trait. That too is learnable. And I want you to think about a time, and I've been through adversity, like everybody's been through something. Think about a time when you had adversity and it was restored back to resilience. Ask yourself, did you create a story about what was happening? Did you take a direct action? Did someone acknowledge that you're having a difficult time and adversity, like closing a store? You create a story around that, but you can't succumb to that story. You create that story, because that story will give you a lesson. If you go through another adverse moment, you will come back, and how you handled that, and going forward, you will handle it again. Did you take direct action? Did someone acknowledge you? Hopefully you have that acknowledgement. We're not in this alone. During a crisis, leaders need to express, again, empathy. I'm talking about resilience, and compassion keeps coming up. You need to have empathy and compassion for human side of upheaval. And the word upheaval is a strong word, but it is upheaval. We have been tossed up into the air and landing as best as we can. We need to own the narrative. A leader needs to be transparent about current realities. We can't deflect from difficulties that are going on. We have to take the time to think about how we're going to go forward. And I invite you, I'm still working with, I invite you to have a 30-day plan, 60-day plan, 90-day plan. Think about going back, and that'll give you some insight of what you could be doing. And that keeps you positive. Own the narrative. I said that before, and this is under resilience because it's quite similar. Leaders need to be transparent about their current realities. Bill Gates said it, and I heard him yesterday speaking with his wife, don't deflect. Deflect from the virus, but don't deflect. In a time of crisis, trust is paramount. And here's the formula for trust. Trust equals transparency and relationships and experiences. With transparency, we communicate the facts. We need the facts. We can't make it as we go along. We need the facts from experts in all different areas. And I'm on Facebook, and I write quite often on Facebook little posts. And I tell people, do not defer to people who are not experts, because they don't know about, they're not microbiologists, they're not epidemiologists, they're not in infectious diseases. Defer to the experts who've done the research. Recognize and address the emotions, like I said before, of all stakeholders. And the narrative, the story, can acknowledge the fears that surface in a time of crisis. So I invite you to actually journal. It seems to help a lot. I've done some journaling. It seems to help a lot because it's creating a story to look back on how you got through such difficult times. And a great quote, what lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us, because it's all within us. We can figure this out with the help of that. So how do we build leadership resilience? Number one, making connections, ongoing connections. I know right now my own children are making connections going forward, what they're planning to do. And clients are making connections going forward, what they're going to do. We have the ability through Zoom and Skype and meetings online. I mean, I've done it. It's an amazing, I'm zoomed out sometimes, but I'm on Zoom sometimes 5 hours a day, making connections in going forward. Avoid seeing crisis as insurmountable. My parents are Holocaust survivors. guess what? They've lived a horrid life. And yet, in spite of, they were hopeful, came to this country, and the crisis became a memory in a way. They never forgot. My parents had passed on, but the crisis was not instrumental because they came to a new country and started another family. Well, we're leaders. People are going to go back to work and recreate themselves again. Take care of yourself, please do, physically, mentally. Learn to self-regulate your emotions. When you find yourself deep into that emotions, you know, it's not working for me, I'm so upset, I can't take this anymore. Self-regulate. Tell yourself, but there is more to come. Do some exercise, do some journaling, change that mindset. It's up to you. I work with people, and that's what I'm doing with them. I'm helping them to change a mindset of giving up to, yes, we can do this. And that's why the word hope was so important for me with regards to this presentation. I like this very much. I don't like when people are ingenuine. We need people to be authentic and transparent. Otherwise, we're wasting time in people in being ingenuine, not being supportive. We need to be who we are, genuine and authentic. Leaders need to have self-understanding. Before I even work with leaders, I have to work with them. They need to understand what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, what are their drivers, what drives their intrinsic motivation, their extrinsic motivation, and so important, emotional intelligence. I'm sure everybody's heard that. The awareness of my emotion. I understand what you're going through, your emotions, and how do we deal in and regulate what we're dealing, both of us, with my emotions and yours. So emotional intelligence, EQ quotient, has been tested, has been worked with years already. It's an amazing area. Identify what you can and can't control. This is a tough one because I know what I can't control, but what can I control? So I'd like for you, you're gonna have the slides, you can do this. On a sheet of paper, 3 headings: what I can control, what I can influence, what I can't control. What I can't control is get up in the morning, have my drink, have my coffee, have breakfast, talk to my husband, call my children. I certainly can take control of that, call friends. What I can't control is the environment. I can't control that. The only thing that control that really are regulations and policy. I don't like the words, the social distancing, physical distancing, wearing a mask. I can't control that because the government has regulations with regards to that, so I can't control that. I have to abide by regulations as well. The tough one for me is what I can influence. And I was listening this morning to the news, and over I keep hearing success stories. So someone who ran a exercise studio decided that she has 50 people working for her. This is in New York, 50 people working for her, and they would be losing their jobs. So she went, guess where? On Zoom. She has half the employees with her, and now they're doing Zoom because so now she has an influence on others because she's helping them to feel physically good about themselves, because exercise will do that. So there's the influence. We do have influence areas. We just have to we have to really work out of the box at this point, away from our comfort zone. She's not the only one. I heard of a yoga studio. So a lot of people are finding ways. Dr. Marshall Goldsmith is the #1 executive coach in the world, and I also interviewed him. And this is his quote: "What got you here won't get you there." Please think about that. What got you here right now won't get you where you want to go. We have to really recreate ourselves. His interview, again, you're going to see it under my company, Resonance Executive and Team Coaching, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. He gives he was a great person to interview. He's an amazing man. He's written many books, and he will show you even some slides. I didn't ask, but he brought some slides to show you how he works through things. He's worked with the top people in the country, in the States, Europe, etc. Okay, let me come back to ask yourself. Ask yourself, what can our firm contribute to the solution? There's a company here in Montreal called Samuelson. My husband was in clothing as well, and they manufactures higher end men's suits. Well, they reopened the place, and now they're making the gowns for nurses and doctors, the uniform gown. I don't know what they're called exactly. They're making the gowns. They're being productive. They're finding a way to help creating a solution. What can be productive from home? How can we work from home? Well, I'm certainly working from home by doing Zoom, by working with clients, by doing groups. How will we do check-ins? That's a good question. How will we do check-ins with all level of the organization, not just employees, not just staff, but even at the C-suite? We need to know, how are we going to be able to work together? How can we check in with each other? And you should have ongoing meetings, and please not email. Go on the Zoom, go on Skype, look at that person. You're going to see, like I saw with students for years and years and years, when you look at them, you see the emotions, you see, are you resonating with them? How will a travel ban impact our business? And that's been a tough one. This is something I had to add. How will we greet people when COVID-19 is over? We're going to do the like my grandson wants to do the fist bump or the elbow bump, or how are we going to greet people? This is like the new normal. We're not going to be shaking hands as quickly as we would like to. So talking across the street like I do with my neighbors, like this is our new normal, but hopefully in time it'll be the normal. The last variable that I looked at was curiosity. Curiosity is an extremely important leadership trait, probably one of the most important. Here's a quote from Dan Shapiro, VP Global Solutions, LinkedIn, and I found this in MIT Sloan Management Review. He said, "I don't know where curiosity comes from, but if I could bottle it, I'd buy it. It is so valuable when things are changing so quickly, to have people on your team who are trying every day to better understand the world around them." And Alan Mulally and Larry Fink, I picked those two also with regards to curious, because there's an article called Incurably Curious. Alan Mulally is the former CEO of Ford Motor Company. Larry Fink is co-founder and CEO of BlackRock, technology-driven financial platform, the world's largest asset management firm. And he's a stakeholder, because I'm very curious, I need to know. He's a stakeholder in the company that has come up with this new drug, remdesivir. Both are very different. Both are very incurably curious. Fink is a perpetual student. He asks questions, and that's how we learn. Curiosity is the underpinning of learning. I always felt that way. So curiosity is the underpinning of learning. Ask questions. Keep asking questions. You will learn, you will reap the rewards of asking a lot of questions. Don't go with the status quo. We have enough. Keep going with questions. And Mulally, the former CEO of Ford Motor Company, likes to understand the root cause of problems. He does not offer temporary fixes. Well, I can see that with a car. We don't need a temporary fix. We want to know how this is going to work properly, every aspect of the car. So curiosity is an important leadership trait. To go on, and again, I've picked examples. Douglas Reddy is a senior lecturer in organizational effectiveness in MIT Sloan School of Management. He conducted dozens of interviews with C-suite executives from around the world. Curiosity was mentioned over and over as a critically important leader behavior. Dan Shapiro again, a quote, "We have to ask questions that focus on what this all means for our business, customers, teams, because we're all in this together. Every aspect, every level of the organization. This puts a premium on having people who are driven by a sense of curiosity." And look at this. Schmidt-Line, the dean of MIT Sloan, I like MIT and Sloan School of Management, curiosity can be learned. It is not just be curious, and I can see my 8-year-old grandson is a very curious young man. He wants to know about robots and artificial intelligence, which I don't understand where it comes from, but he does. So curiosity is learned. He perhaps saw his dad, who was also interested in that, but it must be intentional. If we're curious about something, we need to have the intention to find it. We need to know, like, what is this we're looking for? Now, how do we do this? And I'm a proponent of starting very young. We need to be role models as parents, leaders, but as parents, because parents are leaders. We need to ask a child a question like, what important questions did you ask today? Not what did you learn today? What did you ask today? This becomes part of the leadership narrative. Now, there are other questions as well, but I think this is a really key question to ask your child, no matter what age, starting at 8, 12, 14, 18. I have a 21-year granddaughter. I will still ask, what important questions did you ask today? Okay, curiosity, again, as an important leadership trait. I have met Todd Kashdan. He's an amazing psychologist and professor at George Mason University. He wrote a book, which I have, called Curious. He also created a scale of how you measure curiosity, and 2 things he found. The motivation to seek out knowledge and new experiences is one aspect of his scale. The second one is the willingness to embrace the uncertain, unpredictable nature of everyday life, and he called that embracing. Now, through what I'm going to share with you right now, he uncovered 5 dimensions of curiosity. I want you to think back of the crisis and tell me if you can see. Unfortunately, I can't talk to you, but maybe later on I will. There are 5 areas that he looked at, 5 dimensions of curiosity. The first one is exploration. Joyous, I have to not acknowledge the word joyous, but exploration, the recognition and desire to seek out new knowledge and information. These scientists, these experts, these leaders have to come up with these questions. They have to ask, they have to understand what is needed, what type of knowledge, what kind of information do we need, so that we will come back into a new normal. Deprivation sensitivity. We need to ponder, because it is an invisible microscopic virus. We need to ponder abstract or complex ideas, trying to solve problems and seeking to reduce ways to reduce the gaps in our knowledge. So we have to go forward with using all our senses and ponder all these ideas and find ways. We stress tolerance, the willingness to embrace doubt, because we have a lot of doubts right now. Confusion, we have that too. Yes, there's anxiety and other forms of distress, such as angst. Rise from exploring new, unexpected, complex, mysterious, or obscure events. The next one is curiosity, wanting to know what are people thinking and doing by observing, talking, and listening. And the last one, I don't want to use the word thrill, but it's thrill seeking, he called that, the willingness to take physical, social, and financial risks at this time to acquire varied, complex, and intense experiences. And I think you'd have to agree with me. This brings us back to the crisis. These are the areas that have to be touched if we're curious enough to want to find some answers. And I'm going to move. Zina, how do I move this? I want to move it down.
Zina, I'm afraid we are out of time. We are already at 45 minutes.
Oh, we are? Can I just read this last thing? Is everybody
Absolutely.
open? Yeah or nay? Okay.
Sure.
We're living in a VUCA world. We now have this COVID-19, unfortunately, with its uncertainties. Leaders are struggling to find solutions. I talked to you today about trust, compassion, resilience, and curiosity in creating a mindset of hope. And we also looked at inclusive leadership. Libby Gill is another person that I interviewed. She's wonderful because she wrote The Hope-Driven Leader, and that's a book that I encourage everybody to read. She recently wrote an article, asked me to insert my impression of a mindset for leaders with regards to hope. And she states, hope is the fundamental belief that change is possible and the expectation that is our actions fueled by positive vision of the future that drives successful outcomes. With the uncertainty caused by this COVID outbreak, it is critical that leaders instill their workforce with a hope-driven view of the future, as well as a concrete action plan to adapt and innovate for a changed world. That article is, I believe that hope and inspiration are the defining elements of leadership in a time of crisis. As leaders, we must demonstrate our own vulnerability, yet at the same time, act as visionaries. As leaders, we must engage and share stories of triumphs and past successes. Powerful questions, like I said before, can serve as reminders of possibility and resilience. One question always stands out for me. When you think about the most difficult time we've been through in our company, that got us through it. We all have been there just by the fact that we're human. We've experienced loss of loved ones, loss of health, loss of freedom, loss of control, loss of a job. But by asking questions that remind us how we triumphed an important triumph in those times. We reframe our reality and inspire hope for the future. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Stay safe.
Thank you very much, Zina.
Pleasure.
I'm sorry we didn't have time for questions, but I do invite people to please send us questions by email, and I'm sure Zina will be absolutely happy to answer the questions. And I wish everybody a wonderful Thursday, and I just want to say that there is another wonderful expression from Nelson Mandela that he mentioned once, that may your choices be guided by your hopes and not your fears.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day.
Did you save the chat, Ina?
Yes, I did. And
I'll answer the questions.
I think there was a question about, not a question, but a request on to speak more about the social media.
Oh, okay. In what perspective?
Can you talk a little about social media and how it affects us?
Now we're talking about the stress part. The stress, the anxiety, the effect it has.
Yeah, and then there was a question, any advice on overcoming anxiety during COVID?
Back to anxiety and stress. Okay.
So yes, we have the chat and we have the people who ask the questions. So if you want to answer directly, I'm happy to share. Okay.
As far as the stress component, stress is a trigger. It's triggered by something that is there, that's something we're so fearful of, because fear is going to come first and then there's going to be stress. But the anxiety component, we're being stressed by something. And the ultimate, what comes from that is anxiety. What we can work with is the anxiety. We can learn to lessen our anxiety by, and I'm not going to say much more because people know you need to do the breathing, you need to do the meditating. The stress is going to be there, but you have to diminish the anxiety by taking care of yourself. Do the exercise, happiness. We still have to think of happiness. Laugh, it releases the endorphins, you know?
Yes,
find ways.
Sense of humor helps.
Sense of humor absolutely helps. We need to do that. So I don't have the exact answer for each person, but each person will feel. Remember what I mentioned about Jacinda Ardern? She has tremendous anxiety, yet she's the #1 leader in the planet as far as this crisis that's going on. And yet she admits to being fallible and vulnerable. Admit that to yourself. And admit we're going through a hard time. It's very difficult. I may be a psychologist and coach and everything else, but I experience anxiety as well, because one day I wake up and I think this has to be stopped. Life has to go on. I'm worried about family. I'm worried about people, you know? So we all have to acknowledge that this is a time that it is normal to feel anxious. I'm not going to normalize things like anxiety ordinarily, but right now it is normal. As far as social media, that's a tough one. Social media is really, don't hone in so much on social media, because like I said before, if you want to listen, without talking politics, listen to the experts in the area. Seek out, like I do, seek out the experts. Listen to Dr. Fauci, I have to admit. I love the way he talks, he explains, he helps us understand. Don't go hone in just on social media, that's going to scare you. Go into areas, because we are scared, we are fearful, all of us. Ina would have to admit, we're all going through fear and crisis right now. So therefore, don't become consumed with social media. It's going to be a detriment to you in the end.
I think there is a lot of noise, so you have to know when to shut off the noise.
Shut off the noise. Shut off the noise. Put on some music. I can offer you, let me think, Bruce Springsteen from my time.
That's
You'll
great.
enjoy it. I've got my playlist. Why not?
Thank you. Well, maybe you want to share the playlist and then
Okay.
with everyone.
Number 1, Steve Winwood, Higher Love. Bruce Springsteen, Dancing in the Dark, number 2. Dancing in the Dark, is it called? I forgot. And the third one, Tina Turner, You Are the Best. This woman speaks to me. Love Tina Turner. Do you have
Excellent.
a favorite song in that? Do you have a favorite song?
Oh, I have so many,
So
Zina.
many songs. You
I
like
mean, it will take me a long time.
it helps. Music
It
helps.
helps. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for today.
My pleasure, Ina, as always. As always. Everyone be well. I don't know if you're still online, but whoever's, I see there are 9 people still. Take care. If there's any other questions, send the questions. I will answer.
Thank you. Stay safe.
You too. Talk soon.
Bye.
Stay well. I see to all the panelists. Okay, I'm going to log off. Okay?
Yes. Thank you.
We'll talk soon.